The economy is a Schadeocracy. Now, what do I mean by the economy is a Schadeocracy? Well, let me explain. The globe, and typically a lot of states, like especially in the West, you'll notice they all follow a certain system. Regardless of the ideals these politicians and stuff will bring in, it's oftentimes overall, by majority, the same for the general people. And it's often because of the big corporations and the legal systems and everything that are set in place. And basically, you'll find that, for example, when you look into things like how you have big pharma, like for example Johnson and Johnson, or big food like Nestle, you find that they are working in a sort of network, or like they work together, and they are basically controlling society, if you want to say that. And when they control society, it's through controlling the economy. And what I mean by that is society works through an economy, right? An economy is a system of order based on one's surroundings, and a system of order based on one's surroundings is essentially to do with money. That is our system, and it is a trade system that we rely on. We work on a trade system. That is our economy, and we use money as the modern means of trade, right? That's how we operate now. And there's there's euros and stuff, and we can what's the word? There's a word for this. Do you know where you can cross currencies over between each other? I'll have to come back to that. Foreign exchange, forex. That's what it was. It's foreign exchange. Yes, there's all this stuff that already exists there in place. But point is, what I'm saying is, we have this system. It's basically an order or a system that we have to follow because we have agreed to follow it, and we've realistically, practically shown that by operating in it. However, plutocrats, which are basically rich leaders, such as elites and stuff, the reason you wonder, why are they so satanist or satanistic or satanic or whatever, and you find that you look into these people and what groups they're parts of, and their track record and everything, it's not a good one. And one of the main reasons for it is because they know that Schadeocracy, in case you're wondering, is basically a system of rule where you are succeeding on others' misfortunes, we'll say. And going back to what I said, the reason one of the main reasons plutocrats might support Satanism, or part of, but it's like more so the major reason, we'll say, as even if it is part of, is because it keeps them in power, keeps them rich, we'll say, which obviously the necessities of being a plutocrat. Of course, if you are rich, you don't have to be a plutocrat, but each to their own, right? But it then goes down into the path of Schadeocrats, because a lot of plutocrats are Schadeocrats, and typically a lot of Schadeocrats are satanic, or have satanistics, or basically have a track record of evidentially being into Satanism, and it's because of how the economy has been corrupted and how it mainly appeals to Satanists, or the people who are, we'll say, mainly in power are satanic people, or people who are very destructive, who are very against, we'll say, helping others, and actually, I suppose, trying to build something without being necessarily destructive in unnecessary ways, we'll say. Because look at it this way: someone is always going to gain from your misfortune, right? Someone is always going to, what word could I use here? someone is always going to thinking. Someone is always going to right. I've said this to friends before, you see. I was trying to recall it in my head. Someone is always going to, I said gain, but I typically say benefit. Someone is always going to benefit from your misfortune. And because of that being a fact, that is not just a fact of artificial sense, that is actually a natural fact, because it goes beyond a just human operations or whatever. This is more so a natural applicable concept that seems to be prominent in physics, right? And how the way the world works and everything. And you can look into that and study it all to just confirm it, but I can assure you from someone who has, this is true. But anyways, what I'm saying here is, and I just want to clarify as well, it's true for the majority sense, even if not all sense. I can see why it could be argued, but definitely for the majority sense, from what I've seen studying on, it is definitely, without a doubt, true. Anyways, going back to what I was saying here, basically, because of that fact, or matter of fact, or that factor, and because of the way our economy works, and because of who is in power and who has the most influence over our economy, which would be mainly Satanists and stuff, it definitely influences Schadeocratic values and tendencies, and incentivizes other people, not just people of norms, people of poor, mainly, especially the more important people in the economy, and definitely realistically treated more importantly, and because of how the economy works, and the rich people, and especially the plutocrats, or the rich people who have control, and they're essentially not necessarily entirely afraid to use it especially if they're plutocratic. But they will, of course, be incentivized, nearly, if not entirely, being the most in this case scenario, to essentially follow the trends of Schadeocracy. What am I saying? Schadeocracism. Yeah. Okay. They'll essentially be incentivized to follow the values of Schadeocracism, and just Schadeocracism in general, right? And basically that will convert them into Schadeocrats, and then you go down the avenues or pathways of finding things like Nestle, of Johnson Johnson, and then you fall into these networks, like, even if you look into the network Epstein had, right? Jeffrey Epstein, and look at how he had all these contacts who were basically people who owned and founded and worked for these big corporations and everything, who essentially run the world, right? It's stuff like that, because, like, yes, he didn't necessarily own the whole thing, let's say, but he did play as an operator in it. He was someone who got people. He was basically a network operator. He was able to bring people to communicate with each other, and he helped run this whole network and build it. Right? It doesn't necessarily say that he controlled it, but he was a helper in this sense, in such a sense that I've explained. And when you have people like that in the world who are running this economy, like, they pretty much own the economy, or more so the majority of the economy, to be more specific. And that is, like, why the way the world is why the way the world is the way it is today. And that is our economy. That is the modern economy. And you may be wondering, why am I addressing this? Why am I shedding light on this this topic, I suppose, or whatever, address? But I'll tell you why, right? I'll tell you why. Because it is one of the most important things for us to talk about, especially now, I think. the amount of travesties that have been committed due to the operations of the economy and even the modern economy today through such satanic rulers and the Satanism that has influenced and ruled over this world through the economy is so devastating that it might as well be the worst thing in human history, the worst thing in history that has happened to humans, period. And I confidently say that. For all the good that it has done, I still will confidently say that. Because of what is objectively apparent and evidential. And I highly recommend that you look into these things. I highly endorse and condone that you look into these things. I highly want you to look into these things. Look into these groups. That's why I'm saying them. Nestle, there's other ones there as well. I'll put links in the description down below for which groups you can find, like videos and stuff, right? And like there'll be lists there shown. And heck, I might even make my own list and put that in the description as well, because it's very important. You look into this stuff. And obviously John Johnson as well, as I said. And then there's it's not just the groups as well, but then look into the people who run the groups, the people. Look at their track records, what they're known for, what connections they have, if they're in any networks. It's stuff like that that's very important. And a lot of it's going to get censored and shut down and suppressed and silenced and stuff. That's normal when you go down and do research on these kind of things. Especially online, because they also run the internet and everything, and computers and stuff. And you look into fucking Microsoft and it, like, the rabbit hole for this whole fucking conspiracy is so deep it would shock you to the core. Right? But it is real. It is true. And I'm being honest. This is honesty. This is the honesty. This is honest. Right? When you understand that, not only merely understand it, but understand clearer and clearer, and have full clarity on it, that's better. That's the better. Because the more and more people that wake up to these facts and react, more importantly, react accordingly to them or counter them appropriately, not just merely more appropriately, but like appropriate enough that it might change the world for a better, might change the order of operations, standard operation procedure, whatnot, and just overall order better, then good, right? Good. But it's major setbacks that people don't talk about this, right? The sooner more people talk about this, the better. And I'm going to be one of those people who step up and do that now. And hey, this is my opinion, right? But if you disagree, then try to find why that is. If you know why that is, I'd like to hear it. I'm a very logical person on things like this. I think logic is important. But I think that the reality right now, which reality is very important, it's not looking good. And this is one of the most major reasons why. So, yeah. With that said, I'm going to end the video here. I do hope you enjoyed it. And that's it. Peace.